See you right back, and we're getting ready to rock and roll. Right now, we're going to be with Mike's Way, the Fit Way. We're here now giving a very important show, so we'll see you back in a few minutes. Check it out. You're tuning into the Fitness Way, Mike's Way. So you better get ready. Hey, we're back live, the Fit Way with Mike's Way, and tonight we have a very important subject that we want to talk about tonight. And I mean, it's so important because every parent has come up against this type situation, and we're going to talk about spanking. We're going to talk about punishing. Is it necessary? Is it relevant? Is it something now that we all should look at as something that is either bad, good? How do kids look at it? How does the Child Protective Services and what's the death rate and what are they doing about it? Are the kids now holding that against the parent now for not spanking them? Is there an alternative like timeout? What is the best subject matter, or what discussion can we make about that? A number here is 916-3503, and you can call in, and we would love to hear, or you would type in now on your computer as you watch this, your outline, your thought process. I'm talking about single mothers. I want to talk to those that are married. And with us tonight, we have a personal trainer, Alexandra Palmer. Hey, Alexandra, how you doing?
Hello, Mike. How's it going? I'm doing really well.
Yeah, what's been going on, girl?
Nothing much.
Yeah.
Just going through the motions.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been doing something exciting. You probably just been getting people in shape. I know you said you were injured there for a minute, so you were kind of on IR.
I'm on IR right now. I should be back in another week. Yes, but we continue to train every single day, just get better every single day. And so we're doing the thing.
All right. Elevating Men sponsors this show, and its lead CEO is A.L. Johnson, and we're so much appreciative of allowing us now to share these concepts and precepts that we think are so important. And I mean, this colors, and this goes through all the different backgrounds of ethnicity and culture. It doesn't matter if it's black, white, if you're Asian, Puerto Rican, Spanish, whatever the case may be. I think this really, really hits home because there are large discussions as to nowadays. I know back in my day, back way in those 4 or 5 decades ago, spanking was the norm, and if you didn't get spanked by the time you got home, you get spanked before you got home. Because the neighbor up the street, the teacher now would have the paddle with the holes in it, and you would get the paddle spank 4 swats at school. Then by the time you got home, I know we had Gert Abram, we had Miss Edith Miller, we had Miss McClung, and they would get to me when I messed up in school before I even came home, or they heard something happen at a store and they thought it was me. I would have a talking to before I have the real talking to, because it was like this. I was more afraid of my mama than the police. I didn't want my mother to see me in any kind of situation because I knew what I would get when I would get at home. I'd rather for the police take me to jail, do something, just don't tell my mother. And so as a parent, that began to change because I began to see raising my girls and really, really putting myself into situations where they had to be punished some kind of way. So as how I brought up, we didn't do timeout necessarily. We did spankings. Okay. We pulled the pants down a little bit. We spanked or we hit the hand with a paddle, and so it was just a different time and place. And I know, Alexandra, in your time, because you're much younger, how was it in your time, in your era, so far as how your parents punished you when you messed up?
We got spanked. We got whooped with a belt every single time.
What era? What decade did you grow
up? So I grew up in the 2000s.
Okay.
And so my parents still spanked us all the way up until we got it. And we still didn't get it when we were supposed to get it. but it was necessary. It was absolutely necessary in our eyes, in my parents' eyes. It was, of course, something that our parents' did. So, of course, they're going to take that same approach when it comes to discipline or reprimanding us. So, yes, we got our butts whooped. You know, you get out of line, you get your butt whooped. It's just an automatic. You automatically know. So, for sure.
Well, we're sure missing our brother Dennis Hopgood,
Yes.
but because he's a parent and he's a young parent, and so you know statistics say a lot of times parents they spank their kids out of desperation because they don't know any other alternative. And I just was wondering, what the situation was with that. Are there other alternatives? Is that the tell all situation? And then it comes to the fact too that some kids are just hard headed, and you know what the whole mantra was: a hard head makes a soft behind, that type of thing, And so now they get to a point of desperation. Well, nothing else works. How do I discipline a hard-headed child? What would you say to that? I mean, because you're going to be going into the parental parts of your life, soon to be maybe 10 years. How do you see that on the onset and with the kids that you train and the parents that you see that are with their kids that come to you?
I see that the generations have changed. These kids nowadays that are in school are far more advanced than I think we'd like to acknowledge as far as their comprehension, because a lot of these kids don't need whoopings in these next generations coming up because they understand. They comprehend that right from wrong. They comprehend cause and effect. So not all the time that physical discipline as far as a whooping or spanking on the hand or the bottom works.
So let me ask you this. And that's the important part. But let's bring it to this point. When you spank a child, does that make a child more aggressively push towards away from you, wanting to fight you, hating you, liking you, not liking you, or just like I can't stand you and want to retaliate? Does it cause that? Does the rap music and does the social media and the liberal part of our United States perpetuate that at this point?
And so sometimes a lot of parents, they approach it like I'm the adult. You just do what I say, and I don't have to explain to you why I'm disciplining you. But just the same way as we're in the gym and I'm explaining why you're doing a certain movement, why you're doing a certain stretch, I gonna need to explain to you why you're getting your butt whooped right now, and really have a heart to heart so they completely understand and be transparent about it, so they don't rebel when like I'm constantly getting my butt whooped. It hurts and it makes me angry and this and that. So being transparent and being able to honestly explain why this certain discipline is going to occur helps with that. With that.
So there's repercussions behind things that we do bad. The Bible says if we train up a child in the way it should go, when it gets older, it won't depart. But that's not always the case. And I mean from a person that's not looking at it from a theological way. Of course, if you train up a child the way you now are being an example for that child.
Right.
And in a situation whereas now you're teaching them about Jesus, you're teaching them about God, you're teaching them about how they should behave as it relates to that. But there's a situation where as parents, I know myself, I don't know about anybody else, you guys just chime in with me, I've made mistakes along the way. I wasn't a perfect parent in front of my child.
There's no rule book.
Huh?
There's no rule book.
Okay. So what areas do we find ourselves now to help and to aid and to assist to kids that are just rebellious? Because now I'd rather listen to my friends than to listen to my parent.
Right.
But it's the fact that my friends don't love me, they don't take care of me, they're not responsible for me like my parents are. So how do we get them to see, and now parents now to being more engaged with that child and how can the child be more engaged with the parent?
It's that part. It's that one-on-one, like at a set time. For some families, it's during dinner time. You know, how was your day? Being able to talk to your child to where they're open to tell you about their day and the details of the things that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they have an 8-hour day at school, and you thinking they're a child, they get it, they got the energy to endure an 8-hour day in a classroom setting, but the ins and outs of school is something that they don't normally express to their parents, because things could snowball into things that they don't want. But it's important to be transparent and have those conversations, so you know how to guide that behavior that you see your child start stepping into. So
yeah, I want to take up on the word that you said is so important, the word transparent.
yes.
Now, I think being transparent, I say anyway, transparent is that, look, you haven't done anything that I have not done or have not seen. And
Correct.
to let a child know that you messed up just like they messed up, but I don't want you to mess up because I got in trouble, or I was in a situation was by God's grace, I didn't get in trouble. So I don't want you to go down the same pathway. How open do you think, I mean, in your mind, if you had a child, and I wish I had some on it, because things kind of happen in a minute, but how open do you think a parent should be to their child? Were your parents open to you about their demise, about their good and to their bad?
No, and it wasn't until I began to get out of that adolescent stage and I began to be a teenager and a little older teenager in high school, to where they were really being transparent about their demise and the things that they've gone through and their experiences. But I think that it's important to also do that at a younger age too, because like I said, these kids, they comprehend. So if you are going to be transparent, bring it down to their level of understanding. So it makes it a lot easier, of course.
And I think the same thing too as well, because I mean, here's a whole lot of things that can happen in a child's life, and I mean my girl's life. But you know, I think excuse me, one situation that we deal with is that some parents are ashamed of what they've been through. I know I would not want my children to know everything I went through, you know, things I feel that are personal. But if I could come out of my Pandora's box, if I can come out of my bag, and now if I see them going down that way, I think it's very important for me sometimes. And I know talking and communication is important, but the alternative sometimes I think is to share with them what they're and where they're heading. Pastor here, Dr. Hartsfield, said one time, you know, one of the mantras and things that you hear a lot of times is that, you know, experience is the best teacher. He says, well, I don't buy into that much, because that's not the tell all story. He says, come here, let me share this with you. He says, it's not experiences that's the best teacher. Sometimes good advice is better than an experience. Because if I give you advice, you listen to wisdom and my advice, then you won't fall into the situation and into a conundrum where you're in a bunch of hot water and you can't get yourself out. So you don't have to experience things. So his whole point is, don't get yourself in bad experiences when I'm giving you advice not to go. But we know the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So now here's a parent. I don't necessarily want to tell them, give them an alternative, the time out sitting in the chair, taking them away from activities. I'm so upset that I want to put my hands on my child, because that's the only way they're going to listen. Now, there's a byproduct and a manifestation that can happen after that. You put your hands on the kids so much, then they now start putting their hands on other kids in school. How relevant, or how did you see that in your schools growing up?
For me, it wasn't as, how do I say this? It wasn't not as bad, but it wasn't that severe for me to see like aggression from my classmates because they got whooped at home. or anything like that. It wasn't until I worked in the school district where I began to see students experience that type of behavior from what occurs at home. So there's been students that have been getting their butts whooped at home because they get out of line, they're disobedient, what have you, and then they come to school and they think that when you get out of line or you're disrespectful to me, I can put my hands on you, because when I'm at home and I'm disrespectful to mom and dad, they put their hands on me. So I've seen it just in that aspect, not from my own experience, but just on the outside of these families looking in within the school district, definitely.
And I would say too, and I totally appreciate that analysis. I would say too, that there's a lot of mental conditions now that happens to children that get wayward and get out of control. And I think it's imperative, it's very important, parents, if you're listening, to get your child checked out as some type of service now through your insurance or through the school district that is available now for them to have a psychological evaluation, because they could have attention deficit disorder. And those things now have to be monitored by sometimes medication and psychotherapists, people now getting down to the ground root of now biologically what's going on with the dopamine, biologically what's going on with the mind. And so there's a whole lot of services, and I have lists of those services. If there's any parents that are watching that are interested and they want to know what areas in which they could call, because then you have some people that may be bipolar. You don't know. And so now here we're doing all this beating and we're screaming and we're cussing and we're doing all these things that are just not really should be put in the home. That's really reprehensible so far as the language and the approach. And I believe that these things can be a long-term effect when it comes down to kids, not now, but later. And so you build up something now that perpetuates into now the person now having an out of control type of anger management situation. I know that I did. And my mother, back in those days, they don't have technology like they have right now. But it took a whole lot of prayer. And it took a whole lot to get me calmed down, because I was so hyperactive and I was so sensitive and I was so emotional, Have you ever worked out with one of your students at the time that you've been training where it just got so to the point you just wanted just to scream or really put your hands on them because you don't think that these types of things of discipline were happening at home? Has that ever happened to you?
As far as training, no. And I believe it.
So far as a person's attitude, you tell them to do something, they start acting funky, right? Using that word, not paying attention, rolling their eyes at you. So what point and place do you take?
We take a break and we have a one-on-one, because if you're not going to be attentive and you're going to be attitudey during training, that could cause you to get hurt ultimately, because you aren't paying attention, you're not being attentive, you're not listening, things like that. So we'll take a break, we'll have a one-on-one, let me know what's going on, what type of headspace are you in, and then if need be, we can go ahead and take a break and reschedule. But as far as me wanting to get to the point where I want to put my hands on them, no, not to that point. Let's break away and take a break before it bubbles to that point. So there's always a gray area with that. Like, hey, let's take a break before we get to that point, because it is headed there with all the eye rolling and the stomping of the feet and the lackadaisical movement. So yes, definitely take a break and we can get right back to it. Let's just have that one-on-one so I can know what we're dealing with here.
It's really something to it. I'm just thinking when I was in high school that one of our players, and I don't want to put his name out there because I'm not trying to throw anything at him, but his dad used to play for the San Diego Chargers, right?
Okay.
And so his son messed up in practice. And I mean, he slapped him upside the helmet, slapped him upside. He did this openly in front of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that is applicable. And I don't think that that should be put in place in front of other kids, because now he had that type of control. But his father had this point that he was almost acting like outside was as inside at home, with something you may do at home, but you don't do it outside. Now, if that were to have done, and this was in the 70s, if that were to have done now, somebody would have called the police on him for hitting his son like that, right? But I mean, he hit him, you know. Boy, I told you to listen to what the man said. You ran the wrong pattern, man. You just get on my nerve. You don't listen to me. You don't listen to me. And he's hitting on the boys, you know. And so we find that situation right now totally reprehensible at this point. Because you can't exploit your child like that, because now low self-esteem can come in, the lack of confidence, and a whole lot of other psychological imperfections and situation imbalances that can happen. But you know, I did this research, the fact that some parents take this thing too far. We look at the Bureau of Maltreatment, a bureau. It's a child maltreatment bureau from 2019, right? Let's just take that. Let's take it from 2015 from that same bureau. Did you know that 1,660 kids were murdered, killed by their parents as a result of using physical abuse as a point of reprimanding that child? Now, it doesn't stop there. It escalates over a time period. In 2016, you had 1,730. So look how it increased over 100, maybe plus per year, right? I mean, beating that child, harming that child, that causes death to that child. And I'm not talking about just something where you go to the house. I'm talking about death, and kids now putting in a situation of being comatose. And now not having the ability now to function, then going into a point over a period of time, dying, and the doctors not being able to resuscitate them, or dying at the point of impact, using metal, or using chairs, or using something like that. Then there was a small decrease in 2017. Now it went down probably about 10 to 20 kids. It was 1,710. Before it was 1,730. So now you had a small decline, but now it comes back up. There's an escalation here. In 2018, you have 1,780. So it climbs back up. Now, from that point to today, from 2019 to today, it shoots way up. And statistics has not been outlined for 2021, but between 2019 and 20, okay, you're up to almost 1,900 kids being killed and fatalities happening because of the over abuse of parents. I mean, my God. So there has to be a discussion. There has to be some type of of discussion and conversation about this, because I mean, that's really, really and truly out of hand. But it's not the kids' fault. How do we get to the parents of another way of doing this? Just out of your own mind. What are some of the things that you can think? Okay, we got timeout. We know we got that. Okay. So what would be some of the things, you know, take away a car? What was some of the formative things that you think that would get a child's attention? What got your attention?
What got my attention is something that was close to me, whatever I love to do as far as activities. But the number one thing that meant the most to me was not having my parents be disappointed in me. That is what crushed me. When I knew that I did something wrong and my parents were disappointed, and I could see the disappointment on their face. And even after the situation had occurred, the way my parents and I interacted after that, I could still feel disappointment in their tone. I could still feel that disappointment demeanor about them, like that crushed me. I knew that's what got my attention and made me want to change my behavior. But that right there is a lot. And I'm a woman. So when I was a little girl, yes, definitely. I'm not sure if my brothers had the same reaction, and they responded more. I will tell you this: when I was younger, mind you, I'm the only girl out of 4 brothers, and they responded better to the discipline and the recommendation, but the reprimanding through the loss of activities. They played football, they played basketball, everything. When my dad took that away from them, they're like,
it was a done deal.
They didn't know what to do with themselves after that. They were like, this is what I do. This is something that I do every day. And you're going to take that away from me? All right, then I'm going to straighten up. And it's another thing that goes hand in hand, as far as academics go. If you don't maintain a certain GPA, you're not going to play anyway.
That's right.
So you need to get in line as far as your behavior goes, so that you can continue to play. So like I said, it's that one-on-one, that intimate time between parent and child, where the parent is able to be transparent and that child is open enough to tell them the parents things, just so you know how, when a situation happens, how to discipline them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we only have a few moments left, but I just want to say this, that you was talking about your mom and dad and how, you were just very, very in a very much of a shell. I don't want them to be disappointed. I was the same way. But the main thing you just said, you just said is that the parents were at home.
Yes.
It's hard for a child to feel a point of now not being included, feeling sad when the dad is not there or the mom is not there. I think it's so important. And the thing about it, okay, you go through divorce, you separate, child out of wedlock, make that thing work. Make it work. All things work together for the good, especially if you love God. For those, all things work together for the good, for those who love God and for those who are called according to his purpose. His purpose is not to leave children behind. His purpose is to now include the children now, so they won't be left behind, so that they can get ahead. And then as we close, there's a point I would say this too. And I so much appreciate your dad, your mom, and your family tie, 4 boys, 1 girl, all of them come together to raise great people like yourself. But when we're going through a point now in a position where we're looking at chastisement and how we are to do it, I learned, because I made mistakes along the way too. And things were just, and I look back at them, I should have said this, I shouldn't have done this. And I know somebody out there can get a witness to what I'm saying. But choose your battles.
Yes.
Okay. Certain things you don't have to say, and you have to think about it. Now, if I say it this way, and I'm in Hy-Vee or I'm at Price Chopper or any convenience store, and if I say it out loud, what would that do to her? What do that do to him, knowing how sensitive they are? Okay. So it's in case that, you think about what you're saying, okay, don't do. Now, if I tell them not to do something, what does that mean? If I take away this, would it really change anything? If I holler at them, if I cuss at them, would it now bring the situation up under
subjection? No, that hollering and cursing is just like how we were talking about people and their different learning styles a couple episodes ago, and how they respond to certain things. If you have a kid that comprehends and is going to be listening to what you're saying, even though they are getting reprimanded, it causes them to shut down when you raise your voice. I know, even for me, if somebody yelled, like if my partner yelled at me, I shut down. My hearing is perfectly fine. You don't have to raise your voice at me to get me to understand. I understand the frustration. I understand the emotion and the passion behind what you're trying to get through to me. But the raising of the voice and the tone and the way that you talk could make me shut down, or will make me shut down. It's the same things for some of these children too.
Well, the thing about it too, as we come to a close of this, is the fact you have to get to know your child's personality. And a lot of
Absolutely.
times we are byproducts as to how now, we train and we teach our children. I know what my mother did to me, what my mother said to me, the type of home I lived in, it kind of went into, I was raising my family, and now raising them even up until the point of almost adulthood. All these things came through me as it was thrown at me that became a part of me. And now you have to take one child at a time. You cannot always take these kids and put them in situations, whereas the way you were brought up, you bring the same thing to them. The language has changed, the dichotomy, the whole aura, the culture has changed, the perception of now who you are, whose you are has changed. We don't have the street light things necessarily that come on.
Right,
now,
we gotta adjust with the times.
Right. We text now. We don't talk. There's the internet. Before we had cartoons, we had family gatherings. Now we sit in our own room, doing this kind of thing. And so now, listening is now listening to a game that they may be playing or looking at TikTok or something like that. Right. And so we didn't have those types of things. But I just so much appreciate so much Alexandra, because like I said again, you are one of the best trainers. I just want to promote who she is. Alexandra Palmer is one of the best female trainers here in the city. And you need to get in contact with her. You can call us at 816-916-3503. How do we get in contact with you, Alexandra?
You can actually call my cell phone at 816-678-3664. And get with me. I am a one-on-one personal trainer for student athletes out of Active Strength. And yes, get with me. Let's get these kids trained. Let's do it. Let's become the best versions of ourselves,
All right. We want to thank you all so much for listening to us this evening. The Fit Way, Mike's Way, and we're going to be back next week. So we're going to see you later, and we are out.
Yes.